They are everywhere, occupying the highest platforms, signing decrees, leading multinationals, and influencing millions. But something about them doesn't fit. Something seems out of place. These men at the top, with their impeccable suits, measured words, and always conciliatory expressions, do not exude strength, leadership, or intensity. They do not command respect, they demand approval. And this reveals what no one wants to admit. We are living the rise of the beta, a silent, progressive, and devastating phenomenon that has completely inverted the logic of male power. You clicked on this video because you feel this, at work, in friendships, in relationships, because you realize that the world seems increasingly led by men who have stopped being men. This transformation did not happen overnight. It was planned, subtly encouraged, and systematically disguised as evolution. But evolution of what, exactly? Of the male spirit? Of the natural order that for millennia defined hierarchy, strength, conquest? No. What happened was a substitution disguised as progress. And the alarming thing is that many of the men who helped build this new landscape sincerely believe they are being good. They are in fact being useful until they stop being. The rise of the beta is not a victory. It is a milestone, a tactical move, a piece on the board that when played changes the course of the entire game. And to understand what is at stake, we must first confront modernity's most comfortable illusion, the myth of the alpha. For years you have been sold the idea that the man at the top is automatically the strongest, the most competent, the most desired. CEO? Alpha. Politician? Alpha. Celebrity? Alpha. Sure. But what happens when you take the volume off the narrative and simply observe? You see fragile, emotionally unstable men, dependent on public validation, enslaved by their image. Men who cannot lead a boardroom without needing the emotional approval of their colleagues. Men who are afraid of their own silence. Men who avoid any trace of confrontation or intensity as if it dehumanizes them. This is not alpha. This is performance. A social performance shaped by collective expectations, especially female expectations of what a good man should be. The philosopher José Ortega Gasset said that love is surrender to fascination. But what if this fascination is induced? What if the surrender is collective, not to love, but to the imposed narrative of what a man must be to be accepted? For decades, traditionally masculine values have been reconfigured as dangerous. Courage has become impulsiveness. Coldness has become insensitivity. Leadership has become oppression. Everything that built respect has become moral guilt. And here comes the essential contradiction. The more a man molds himself to be accepted, the less he becomes that which generates desire, leadership, and real impact. Nietzsche wrote that what is good is everything that increases a man's power. What is bad is everything that is born of weakness. From this perspective, modern masculinity is being reprogrammed to deny itself. The new good men are those who bend, who doubt themselves, who seek approval before action, who are ashamed of their own instincts for protection, hierarchy, and conquest. Men taught to be useful, but not indispensable. Have you noticed that speeches about masculinity are rarely given by men you truly admire? Those who speak of good men are often the same ones who would not lead a group on a trail, who would not protect their own family in a crisis, who avoid confrontation and take refuge in empty diplomacy as a form of status. They have learned the language of social acceptance. They are experts at saying what needs to be said in order to avoid being rejected. But between being accepted and being admired, there is a chasm. The true alpha male does not seek approval. He commands respect with his presence, with his clarity, with his silence. The mistake was to believe that the top of the hierarchy is equivalent to the top of masculinity, as if power were synonymous with personal power. But modern power, especially in the symbolic democracies in which we live, can be conquered through narrative, through politics, through emotional manipulation. And here is the tipping point. The current system rewards beta behaviors, not because they are effective, but because they are predictable, manageable, and aligned with the new emotional order. And this emotional order was shaped in large part by a feminine imaginary that defined what a harmless man is, and therefore acceptable. The true alpha does not fit into this model. He does not ask for space, he occupies it. He does not explain his strength, he demonstrates it, and for this reason he has become a threat. The current system needs moldable, adaptable, pleasant men. Men who renounce their essence to fit the package. Men who confuse vulnerability with submission. Men trained to apologize for being men. The result of this? A society where leaders seem like leaders but do not lead. Where power is symbolic, but the impact is weak. Where the top is occupied by male figures who inspire everything except confidence. True masculinity has been replaced by a civilized caricature of what remains after years of social conditioning. And you feel it. In every meeting where no one decides anything. In every debate where the fear of offending paralyzes progress. In every man who confuses empathy with neutrality. The absence of alphas is visible. But the right question is not where are they? It is who took them out of the game. Who took the alphas out of the game? The answer is not at the top. It's at the bottom. And that's where the plot gets even more insidious. Because the alphas weren't defeated by stronger men, or by more effective ideas. They were brought down from within, by their own team, by the emotional sabotage of those who, in another time, would have followed their leaders, learned from them, and evolved under their protection. But not today. Today, what we have is resentment disguised as justice, alliance disguised as inclusion, and strategy disguised as empathy. The best analogy to understand this scenario isn't in politics or in books. It's on TV. More precisely, in a television social experiment called Survivor. In one of the most intriguing seasons, men and women were separated into different tribes. And as expected, in the beginning, the men mastered all the physical challenges, created systems, built shelter, maintained fire, hunted food. It wasn't just strength, it was competence, order, functional hierarchy. The female group, on the other hand, was failing at everything. No structure, no strategy, no results. But then something changed, not on the battlefield but behind the scenes. The women realized they couldn't beat the alphas in a direct confrontation. So they did what any inferior force would do. They resorted to manipulation, emotion, strategic seduction. And they didn't target the alphas, they targeted the betas. That was the key piece of the game. The low-status men, the ones who didn't lead, didn't make decisions, didn't build. Those who existed in the shadow of the alphas with wounded pride and pent-up ambition. The women came at them with 3 weapons: fear, pity, and desire. "You'll be next," they said. "After we leave, the alphas will cut you off." They planted doubt. Then they used victimhood. They showed suffering, fragility, the need for help. And finally, they threw the bait of desire. Smiles, veiled promises of companionship, the illusion of a future where the betas would finally be seen, chosen, valued. The formula worked. The betas began to betray the alphas. First discreetly, sabotaging decisions, delaying tasks, weakening leadership. Then openly, allying themselves with the women. Together, they formed a numerical majority and eliminated, one by one, the strongest men. The result? A symbolic victory for women. Complete destruction of the alphas. And the betas? Used and discarded. As soon as the alphas left the scene, the betas were eliminated. Their usefulness was over. This story is not just entertainment. It is metaphor. And more than that, it is a mirror. What happened in Survivor happens in the real world every day. Today's society has trained men to abandon the instinct for hierarchy and replace it with the desire for approval. And the first to respond to this call are always the weakest. Those who have never led, those who have been constantly ignored, those who harbor resentment toward the alphas, not because the alphas humiliated them, but because they made them see their own impotence. And when the system offers an alternative that promises status without conflict, recognition without effort, and approval without merit, they accept it. But the price is high, because this acceptance makes them disposable. These modern betas are the ones who keep saying, "I'm not like other guys," who adopt progressive discourses just to protect themselves from female judgment, who sell themselves as sensitive, understanding allies. But deep down, they act this way because they fear exclusion, because they desperately need the female gaze to feel that they exist. And that's why they become perfect instruments. They are moldable, predictable, obedient. They never lead, but they always help to overthrow those who lead. This is the tactic of the new system, using the weakest to destroy the strongest. It is efficient, silent, and almost impossible to detect in time. But it has a pattern, and an inevitable consequence. Betas always believe that they will be rewarded for their loyalty. But the system does not reward those who serve. It only tolerates it until it no longer needs it. And then what's left is exclusion, contempt, and even greater resentment. The tragedy is that many of these men don't even realize they've been used. They believe they're fighting for equality, for justice, for a new masculinity. But what they're doing in practice is weakening the very foundation of which they're a part. They're helping to remove the pillars that supported their symbolic existence. Because without alphas, there's no reference, there's no structure, there's no respect, just chaos, disputes, and men trying to be heard by a system that has already decided that they're at best utilitarian. And here we come back to the fundamental question: who took the alphas out of the game? It wasn't women alone. It was betas, seduced by the illusion that they could finally occupy the throne they'd always watched from afar. They didn't realize that the invitation wasn't to the throne, it was to the scaffold. And when the alphas are gone, what's left? This is the part that no one likes to discuss, because it's easy to celebrate the removal of a dominant force when the focus is on the discomfort it causes. What's hard to face is the vacuum it leaves behind. On Survivor, after the women won and the alphas were completely eliminated, what was left was a symbolic scene of triumph and a collapsed structure. The newly enthroned leaders didn't know how to build, lead, coordinate, or maintain what had been achieved. The village deteriorated, the fires went out, the system was slowly crumbling, but the game was over, and with it, the illusion remained intact. In real life, however, the game doesn't end. When the alphas leave the scene, the problems don't disappear, they pile up. The structures weaken. Symbolic leadership can't bear the weight of reality. And it's at this point that the system reveals its fatal error, removing the competent in the name of the convenient. The void left by strong men is not filled by ideals, it is filled by chaos, by bureaucracy without courage, by decisions that seek to please but do not solve problems. Society begins to function like a company without a CEO, like an army without command, like a relationship without polarity. Authority is diluted, direction becomes diffuse, and the betas, now alone, find themselves responsible for a system they never knew how to operate. They do not know how to sustain what they helped to conquer, because it was never theirs. They were only momentary shields, useful while they served a greater purpose, to eliminate the true leaders. But here's the most brutal part. Just like in Survivor, the betas who helped in the coup are the next to fall. They do not represent an obstacle. They are easily replaceable. And, since they no longer have anyone to compete with, they become targets. Not because of strength, but because of irrelevance. They are the good husbands who are left behind after success. The colleagues who did everything right but never got promoted. The men who played by all the rules, and in the end, were not chosen. Their loyalty does not guarantee protection. It guarantees disposal. And so we are back to square one. True masculinity is not decorative, nor is it adaptable. It is structural. When it is removed, the system silently collapses. The house may stand for a while, but the pillars are already compromised. And when it collapses, everyone suffers, including those who thought they would win by eliminating it. That is why the time to act is now. Before the cycle is complete. Before an entire generation of strong men is replaced by domesticated caricatures. Before your own life becomes an experiment in survival, with no winner. And the question you need to answer is not whether you are alpha or beta, but rather, are you building or just serving those who want to destroy? If the answer bothers you, then perhaps there is still time. Because in the real world, unlike reality TV, the game is only over when everyone loses.